Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Katie and it is mid-August. These are the 5 inserts I've been using this year as my journal. We've talked about these some on the channel before, and I'm going to bind them into a keepsake book. Now, I have a vague idea of how I'm going to do this, but I haven't fully decided. So this is going to have a little, it's not going to be like a focused tutorial by any means. I'm going to do this more as a project blog. I will try to talk you through what I'm doing. I will leave some links to some actual bookbinding YouTube channels that I reference, but we'll talk through some of the mental things that are going on here, and we'll come in and out. This is going to be in different segments, probably across multiple days. So currently I have 5 inserts. I've changed along the way. This one, the first one I started was Midori, and then I've got a Wonderland 222 B6 that I cut down. This one had more pages, like 96 or something. And then these 3 are these are 68 GSM TRP from Paper Penguin Co. And these have 40 pages each, which is a nice size for me, because then I fill them with photos and whatever. So I have these 5, and I'm on the fence about if I'm going to do all 5. I'm tempted to take out, I've been waiting to do this until I did the August one, but now I'm thinking about taking out the August one. So as it currently stands, if I were to bind these as they are, the spine, turned on my computer by accident, would be about 1 inch, which is fine, a little thick, but fine. I was originally waiting until after I'd finished this insert because I thought I would change from the Midori sizing B6 Slim to the Jibin, Techo, Sterling Ink, etc. size, but now I'm feeling like I don't really care that much, and so if I take this one out, that does commit me to using the Midori for the second half of the year. I mean, it's also halfway through the 8th month, so we're already deeply in there. And then this feels a little bit like a nicer size of book. So I think I'm going to do that. I'll just stick to the Midori size until the end of the year. That's only a few months. It's not that big a deal. And also it doesn't make that big a difference. Oh, no, you know what? I am going to bind them all together, and I'm going to switch sizes slightly for the next one, because I can do some, I'm starting from TN size, and I can do them TN width instead of cutting them down, and that will be easier. So we're going to do all 5, and it'll be a thick book, and that's fine. Now, because this is a scenario where I started in January and didn't really know what I was doing, and it's just evolving, we've got some weird things going on here with these spines. I don't know if you can tell. So these last 2, I think I've bound the same way with the holes in the same places, or pretty close. But these first 3, these holes are just in random spots. And so I need to resew and put new holes in things, I think, in order to bind them. I am planning on sewing them together, I believe. That's going to be tedious, but I don't have a better thing to do. I'm also going to take some cardstock and make some little fly leaves too, because I don't really want to bind this pretty paper into my case bound hardcover, whatever. You'll see what I mean when we get there. So the first thing I need to do is I need to poke consistent holes in these first 3 inserts, and I need to sew these inserts together, and I don't want to do them too tightly. What I do not want to do is like really compress the spines and have this really splay. I think I want a little looseness, I mean, whatever, a little splay isn't a huge deal, but I don't think I want to bind them too tightly here on the sides. So we'll see how well I do that. I will come back and talk about it afterwards, because I'm just going to be feeling my way through it, and this video would be eternal and not fun to edit nor to watch. I mean, you might enjoy watching it in a context in which you are also doing 5 other things, but I'm not going to enjoy editing it, so I will come back. All right, it's the next day, but I did this right after filming. So I made some fly leaves, which I sewed in here, and I sewed all the sections together. Now, not as nicely, none of this is as nice as if I'd like started with intention at the beginning of the year, but no, for just hacking it together now in August. So far, so good. But between the sections is a pretty substantial gap, which I could leave, but I think I'm going to try gluing them. So I have PVA glue, and I'm going to use my little they're like little pieces of wood with some cardboard in between them and some clamps to hold the spine, and put some glue on it. That'll also kind of take care of some of these threads. So a thing I haven't said is that there are a lot of great bookbinding content here on the internet, but another nice thing about bookbinding is that if you're just getting started, you can get started with very little actual equipment. I mean, even, you know, fancy materials. Obviously, there are lots of fancy equipment and materials that one can buy, but it doesn't really need to be. So I don't need a clamp here before. What I've done is I've put them between some heavy textbooks or whatever with some parchment paper to protect the books, and you can just put the glue on that way. PVA glue is accessible, but people also sometimes use just Elmer's glue as well. So I'm gonna use, I think, this silicone brush to do it, but I'm gonna do it off camera because I don't have a lot of room to work in the mess that is my desk. So I'll be back. So I've done 2 layers of glue now. This is what I use. Jade PVA glue from Hollanders. Hollanders is a great bookbinding supply shop in the US, and I am lucky that it is in my hometown, although they are online only, so I wish I could go look around, but I can't. So anyway, I've done 2 layers of the glue here, and that means that now when I open these, you don't get like a huge gap in between. Because of how thick the sections are, the like glue goes like in between them, and so I have some glue that's come through on here, and I've decided not to let that bother me. You know, it's a little messy, but it's really not that big a deal. And I'm just going to be happy that I have all of my journal, you know, nicely put together. So the next step is to measure the text block. It is quite uneven here on the, I believe this is called the foredge if we're talking in bookbinding terms. If this was a new book, what I would do is clamp it and like trim it and sand it so all of this is flat. But of course I have stuff on the edges of the pages, and I'm just gonna live with it. So anyway, the next step is to measure, and I guess I can do that on screen with you. So this is B6 Slim, and despite the fact that I'm in the US and generally use Imperial, bookbinding is better done in metric because millimeters is a good so this is 10.8, except that some of the pages are wider, and this is 17.6. So the way you do it is you cut for a hardcover book, you cut your book boards to be the same width as that. You add a little height to the top. I think like maybe 3 millimeters total that you'll split between. The reason you don't add to this width is because you actually put a gap between the spine, so you'll put like a 3 millimeter gap or whatever here, and that will create that overhang this way. And then the spine is 21. And I'm just writing that on here because this is going to get glued down. So I'm going to cut my book board. I do have some book board, but in other ones I've just used non-corrugated cardboard that I have from cereal boxes or whatever else. You can glue them together and make them double thick. That works really well. But I think I'll probably use real book board on this occasion. I will double check these numbers and make sure that I'm remembering correctly off the top of my head. If I change them, I'll let you know. So I did end up changing things since I talked to you. I added to the height, I added a total of 4 millimeters, 2 millimeters to the top and 2 millimeters to the bottom for the like space. And then because I want the hinge gap between the spine and the thing to be 5 millimeters, I subtracted 3 millimeters from the width of my book. That way, so this will go here. This is exact for the spine. And then there'll be a 5 millimeter gap. And then that will give the like the space up and down. So I tend to like pretty small overhangs. We'll see if I regret that or not with like how untidy this book is, but like whatever happens, I'm fine with. So I've got all 3 of these cut out. I can cut them with just one of my paper cutters. Except for the spine. The spine was too narrow and I cut that with a rotary cutter and a ruler. So now I've got these. The next step is to pick a color for my book cloth, the thing that will be on the outside, and cut that. It doesn't need to be exactly to size, but square such that I can put these things here. And then I have some little jigs. So no, it's 7, which I think this one's 5. Let me double check. But so you take this and that, line them up. Whatever. Let me see if 7 would be a good idea based on the size of my book. So if I do 7 here and that, yeah, it's pretty chunky overhang. I'm gonna do 5. That's too much. So I'm going to do 5 millimeters. The first step is to cut the book cloth, to decide on my book cloth and to glue these down onto a bigger than I need piece. And then what I will do is use this 15mm jig to cut. I want a 15mm overhang of the book cloth from these. These are all numbers I'm getting from YouTubers who are more knowledgeable than I am. I also can't decide if this is square or not. It kind of looks like it veers, but I'm not sure that I can make it more precise, and probably messing with it will make things worse. So let me get my book cloth. So I got these from Hollanders. This is the green. I have a bigger piece, but this is nice and easy. This is what I currently have my sterling ink common planner in, and it is quite nice, and I can't decide if I want to use it again or if I want to switch to something else. I have this like kind of linen textured gold color, not like metallic, just gold color. I have black faux leather, which is a little too stately for me, but I am thinking about doing this green faux leather. It's not really faux leather, it is paper. It's kind of a faux leather paper, you know, but my favorite is still the green. I think I might do green again. So, and then maybe the gold for the fall, like the second half of the year. That would be fun. Okay, a thing we have not talked about and that a better tutorial would talk about is grain. So all paper, most paper products have grain, and it goes in one direction, and you can tell which way it is. And these are my end papers. So most paper has a grain, and you can usually tell which way it is by like bending, and it will bend nicer in one direction than the other. And the direction that it prefers to bend is the grain, and you want to fold things in the direction that it prefers to be folded. So all of my book has the grain going up and down, right? When I made my inserts, I made them that way, I think. And all of these have the grain going this way. And so when I cut a piece of this, I also want the grain going that way. And one of the nice things about buying from Hollanders is that they specifically tell you which direction the grain goes. This is an offcut, but I can tell just by folding it. And this is something you get with experience, but I will say I don't have a lot of experience. All you need is minimal experience. That it prefers to bend this way compared to the other way. So I'm going to cut something bigger than I need and come back. All right, now would be a great time for me to not have the absolute bare minimum amount of space on my desk. But here we are. So I've cut this much bigger than I need it. We're gonna have a lot of overhang, but that's fine. It's just the width. And you know what? I have so much stuff in my craft room. I'm not looking to like keep every little scrap here. What I'm gonna do is use, I have a lot of quilting rulers because quilting, so I'm gonna use that. They're great for making perpendicular lines. I just want something to be straight down. So what I'm gonna do is glue this here and then use some jigs and stuff. Maybe I'll do this on time lapse to make all of these things straight, like even, because my jig is taller, whatever. I'm gonna use my silicone, my PVA, and a bone folder. I'm gonna like flip things over to like get all the air out of them, like bubbles from the backside. So I'll switch to time lapse. Okay, if any of you were screaming through the camera, I heard you. I did not want the 15mm jig in between here. I wanted the 5mm, and I did do it. And then I've trimmed it all down to 15. Now to do the corners, I need to trim them at like a 45-degree angle, 1.5 book boards away. Gives a nice corner. So I think this is 2mm book board. No, it's like 1 millimeter. So 1.5mm. That's not like, we're just gonna do our best, you know, whatever. There are jigs and stuff for this. Did I make one last time? I don't even remember. We're just gonna practice and hope that practice makes perfect. The 1.5mm is so that you can fold it nicely. I apologize if my head is in here. Yeah, so that you can fold it nicely around the width of the corner. So can I use this to do 45 degrees? Not so easily. We're just gonna do it. People who are very experienced with this do it by eye. Yeah, that doesn't seem right. It should be equal, right? On both sides. That's bad too. Hopefully, I am adequately showing you that hopefully you don't need to be perfect at this to still end up with something you're happy with. Or at least that I'm happy with. Your perfectionistic tendencies, you'll have to reckon with yourself. I do not identify as a perfectionist. Detail-oriented, but not perfectionist. So I'm gonna cut these corners. And how obnoxious these corners end up being to turn depends widely on your book cloth. So like real nice thin book cloth turns much easier than if you're like, oh, I found this random fabric, or I found this random faux leather, or whatever. So ask me how I know. So I have this Ulta catalog that I'm just going to use to glue on. And there's a convention, I believe, to do sides and then like both sides and then both top and bottom. In an ideal world, I check that, but I don't remember. The convention is to do one then the other. All right, and then I'm going to turn the page and I'll get glue on my stuff. And then I'm going to use my bone folder to like really crease this side across, like just go up against the board, and then I can like fold it over. Hopefully get like a nice tight, nice tight. And then for the corner, you take your bone folder and you like smash it along this straight edge on both sides. And we'll see if I regret doing two sides at a time. Bookbinders have ways of altering their glue by making like wheat paste to like extend the dry time and stuff so that they can have you know, different dry times depending on what they're working on. I have not done that. Got a little wrinkly here, but I think we'll be okay. And then I'm just gonna smash this side and this one. And then I have glue on my bone folder. And then, but now I'm gonna do the top and the bottom the same way. This I might do one at a time. Oh, that's way too much glue. It's a longer edge, that's why I'm a little nervous. All right, give it a good crease. There are some gaps here. And then flip it over. All right, we got a little bit of pointy corner here, which is a thing that happens, but with something kind of malleable, you can sort of take your bone folder and kind of push it around a little, and it will look okay from the outside. So I'm just kind of squashing it. And then we'll give it that. Just manhandle this a little bit. I think they'll look okay. They don't look too like uneven in any particular direction. I'll do the other side. It's okay if you get glue on here as long as it doesn't, you know, extend past where you're going to fold the glue into. And I mean, even if it does, you can just let it dry, but great use of catalogs if you still get them mailed to you with or without your consent. And then a little bit of corner management here. Looking pretty good. You can round the corners on your like book board and then do them on here. I've seen people who do it nicely. I am not personally convinced I can do it nicely, so I've been sticking with non-rounded corners. Let's just make sure. So when I was using my bone folder, hopefully you can see it in the time lapse, I went, you know, around all of these spots. I'm just making sure there are no bubbles, nothing weird. Good contact on everything. Okay. Now we can decide if we have a prettier side and an uglier side or not. I'm just reinforcing these edges here because I think they look nicer when they're nice and crisp. I don't think I have a like clear winner at this point. Here's my book. We can do a nice dry run here. So this is what it's gonna look like, you know, with my ugly foredge, but you know, whatever. But I feel like I made a nice sized case, which is the name of, this is a case-bound book. So you can see that despite the fact that I cut the book board narrower than the text block, when I added the 5mm hinge, I still get a bit of an overhang here. So if I wanted to proceed to the end, just close up my glue here in an effort to prevent glue disaster. If I wanted to proceed toward the end, I would be extremely close. What I would do is I would put glue on here, I would close this, I would put glue on here and close this, and then put it like under some heavy books, and we'd be in business. And so then it would open like this, you know, to here, and then into my inserts, and then, you know, through like that. And hopefully when I glue the end papers in, there'll be like room for the spine to like maneuver and whatever. So, but I'm not proceeding to the end quite yet because I have a pretty boring cover at the moment, and that's fine. But I have the equipment and supplies to make a pretty cover, so I'm going to do that. It'll probably be several days before you hear from me again because I gotta like draw something or find something on Etsy. So I'll be back. Okay, it's actually the same day. We'll see. But I did some drawing on my iPad. I got my Cricut going. Not Cricut, I have a Silhouette. I don't even know I said Cricut. And we've got some foil to put on here. I'm hoping it'll look good. It got a little intricate there, but that's the plan. And then I have a 2025 to put on the spine. So I need to heat up my press and do a little testing to make sure that the settings are good for this material, but then I think we are in business. So I'm not sure this is going to be my best heat transfer vinyl of all time, but I am excited to see how it goes. Well, that was an adventure. Since I last talked to you, I had to remove, like, scrape the HTV off twice. I started by doing the spine, and I thought that like the settings were good and whatever, and then I just kept like I applied the HTV, and there'd be some sections that weren't sticking at all, and like I would keep trying and it was getting worse, and so I like scraped it all off, which was not fun, but I'm glad I could do it. And then I tried it again, and that was still a fail, and then I was like, let's try a different HTV. The one heat transfer vinyl, by the way, the one I was using was something I'd gotten from Amazon a few years ago and wasn't like a name brand, and I was like, let's switch to the sizer, let's see. I will say that that one like weeded much nicer, and again I did this, you know, I don't need the year on it this many times, but I put it on here as like a test. It went on beautifully, no problems. I went to do my design and had like a couple problems. I've managed to get it all on here. There's like a spot where it's not as like sunken in as I'd like, but I think it'll be okay. So there we are. This is little Mr. Mac, the kangaroo at the animal sanctuary that I like to hang out. And we got, you know, year, whatever. So, I don't really know what the problem was. It did get easier when I switched brands of HTV, but I also kind of wonder if it doesn't... I had a scrap of this book cloth and everything adhered to that just fine, so I don't really know what to make of it. More experimentation needed. I have some scraps of book cloth and of cardboard that I might experiment with when I'm willing to face it. But right now I'm just glad that this is done. So what I'm gonna do is do these last covers, but I want to test it out because I'm a little worried that I'm thinking about this wrong, and so I need to do a little bit of a dry run here. So I'm going to take some washi tape, and I'm gonna, so far we haven't really seen what happens with the spine when we do things. So let's center the text block height-wise in the case. Let's line it up so the spine is good. And then I'm going to put this tape down here. And then close the book. So that's how I would be gluing it. And let's do the same thing here. Here's all my math and notes and stuff. And then close the book. And then let's make sure this behaves as we expect. So it looks good in the case. Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm going to tape. Like, will this open the way it's supposed to? Is what I want to make sure. That, like, the spine. I'm not sure this tape is strong enough for what I'm looking to find out. I could. So I'm like, if it's glued like this and like this, can the book behave the way it's supposed to? I think I need to be careful not to glue all the way. Like, I think we'll be okay. I don't know how to show you what's going on here. Yeah, here you can kind of see it. I need to not glue all the way to the corner of the end paper. I need to do it, a few millimeters away, and that gives the spine enough room to move around. The text block is heavy. I'm a little afraid it's gonna put a lot of strain on this flyleaf, which is why I like sewed it in as well. All right, let's take a slightly more active investigation and use some tape runner just to make sure we'll be okay. So I'm going to do it on the outer edge here, and then not all the way to the edge. The reason this isn't a tutorial is because I don't think that this is interesting to watch, but we are kind of at the moment of truth here to figure out if this is gonna look good and work the way I want it to. So it's high drama, can't you tell? So hopefully that's good enough to find out. So if I open it, I can hear it coming apart, but does it have to come apart? I think if glued down, I just want it like a generous amount of not glued apart, which is what I've already said in the past. And that's true here. Okay, I think we can find a way for this to be okay. Here's what it will look like. Alright, I don't think this is going to be like the perfect book of all time, but like, that's not the adventure we're on. The spine is a little thick and the sections are big, but we knew that already. None of that is news. Okay, I'm gonna get the glue off. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and put glue on the end papers, the PVA, and close this thing up. All right, friends, we are all done. So here we are. Sorry, the reflective metal is not great on screen. It's a little too shiny in person too, but here we are. It's fun. I am extremely pleased with how this turned out. So there is a little bit of a weird thing about how it opens. I left a 1/2 inch unglued here on the inner bit of the flyleaf and end paper. Here, you can see it here. And that is critical for getting it to like open nicely. So some weird things are happening back there, but it's all fine. Yeah, see, like, but it all opens just fine, and it doesn't open flat anymore, like lay flat. But I never really thought it was going to, and I'm not writing in it anymore. So we're just showing you random pages in my journal now. So I'm really pleased. Obviously it is far from perfect, but considering that I went in like this is 8 months without a plan, I'm really thrilled. So I would end up with a nicer product if I cut these all to exactly the same. If I use the same inserts and cut them all to exactly the same thing, that would make a substantial difference. And if they were less thick, then I wouldn't have as much glue seep between them. But again, it doesn't bother me that much. I wonder if I could have used some cloth, like less glue and like a cloth kind of thing in there, but I'm not complaining. It is both sewn and glued, so I think that all of this is going to be very sturdy for the life that it's going to lead, considering that I've already finished writing in it. It's just going to be for picking up and paging through. I have never sat down to read my journal. I did like to page through them, but I've never like sat and read. And I've talked about moving more and more to like kind of a sketchbook style, and that's really fun to page through. A lot of clouded leopards. Here's some little panda girl faces I was drawing. So I'm thrilled with that. The HTV situation is not perfect. If this was my everyday carry, definitely some of this stuff would come off. The ears came out really well. Most of this part did, but there's some spots that are like rough, and I know, like, so I don't know if it's that it got too hot and melted, or it didn't get hot enough, but like I did a lot of babying it, and I'm worried to mess with it any further. So those are my kind of major self-criticisms, but to be honest with you, I'm mostly thrilled. That's how I feel. It's gonna look so nice and tidy on the bookshelf. I'm already thinking about what color or whatever I might want to do for part 2, which would be really fun. And then I'm feeling a little bit of mourning because I'm not planning at the present moment to do inserts next year, just because I'm getting like 4 quarterly planners, which I am thinking about making hard covers for them. So some of the bookbinding and whatever stuff will still be in play, but I don't know that we'll be doing exactly this. So we might only have 2 of these, but we also might come back to inserts in future years. I certainly purchased plenty of them. I went crazy on these Paper Penguin Co. ones. This is a blank page. Sometimes they happen. So anyway, I hope that this inspired some of you. I understand that I might not have made it look easy. I don't really feel like it was very hard. I did it all in a weekend, and besides the HTV trolls, I thought everything went extremely smoothly and extremely according to plan. So I wouldn't consider this to be a difficult DIY, but obviously I have a lot of precise cutting and other skills already at my disposal. But I think if you think it sounds like fun, that you should go for it, because it is fun and immensely satisfying. So this video was filmed as like a project log. I'm thinking maybe in January, when I do the second half of the year after December is finished, I might film that one more as a tutorial and less as a like project log, but I didn't really know how it was gonna go ahead of time. So let me know if that's something you would want, or maybe you'll just want to see the finished product. But anyway, I'm here to encourage you that crafts are fun, and sometimes different hobbies can have a really, really fun intersection. And I think that bookbinding and journaling really make a great combination. So thank you for hanging out with me. We will talk again soon.